Welcome to episode 10 of the Build Insite Podcast. My name is Luke Callery and I'll be your host today. I'm also joined by my co-host Dean over in Victoria. I'm going to pass over to Dean to introduce our guest we have today.
Thanks, Lukey. It's my absolute pleasure. I've had some great experiences the last 12 months getting to know this person and talking about the CEO of McCormacks Australia here and Julia Hall. She's a bit of a trailblazer through the industry and been quite busy with the innovative side of what McCormacks are doing and definitely has a strong point with sustainable building materials. So the diversity of what Julia is working behind is really something amazing. So Julia, as we get started, we might break this first part down and talk firstly about McCormacks, but also Thermery, if you want to kick off there.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a real pleasure to work with Build Insite. So McCormacks Australia, probably just as a super fast background, we were a traditional timber wholesaler, and some of you might be aware that there's been some changes in the industry, which were part of the reason why we decided to diversify our range. And I've been really lucky to be able to spearhead that process and bring into the range Magnum board, Thermery, and Save board over the last few years. So if we start with Thermery, the reason that we chose that product was that essentially it's solid timber, thermally modified. So we get to a class 1 or 2 for above ground, but with heat and steam. There is actually no chemical in this product. So if we think about end of life, it means that we can basically use that timber. We can use all of the offcuts. We can chuck it in the fireplace as kindling at the end of the process if we need to. We can put it in the ground. It's not going to hurt anything because there's no chemicals there. So longevity-wise, it performs really well, especially thinking about our Aussie climate. And the range is just beautiful. I love it. The quality is second to none. I'm not sure what else you want to know about it, Dean.
Well, I know, like, where Luke and myself and probably a lot of our listeners and definitely builders, like, a lot of the industry comes from the carpentry background. I know ourselves with Backman Builders, we've had the pleasure, honestly, of using Thermery in multiple forms already. It obviously sounds a bit odd, but a lot of chippies love the smell of timber and so forth, but it is really like nothing else. We've previously just used it as a curved aisle and bench cladding, feature pool screens, like outdoor house cladding. So, I mean, the diversity of it is amazing. I think I found with Thermery, as we said, we use it in some challenging formats to curve. And maybe if we touch on too, like, you've actually got your engineering department involved with that can add that advice about how to install to custom formats as well.
Actually, a really good point. So the range, we have obviously the interior range, which covers your interior linings, which is obviously you use the SRP around your bench. And that's also suitable for saunas. So we've got quite a few sauna builders using those interior linings as an alternative to cedar. And then we have on top of that the cladding for outside. So if we if we talk about the interior range, the thermal modification on that interior range is what we call medium. So it just makes it to a point where it's not going to move. It means that you can get these really tight profiles, really like a lot of detail. So a round profile or a triangle profile. We have some castellated profiles and we've got some new ones coming through. But it means that you can get a lot of different looks inside, whether it's for a wall lining in a bathroom, which, as you guys know, like, how many times will a timber manufacturer tell you it's okay to use timber in a bathroom? And then, of course, for the saunas. And with the engineering side of things, so Thermery have in-house engineering and support for us, which is just so great because it means that, like, for instance, with your bench, it meant that we could give them the radius of the bench and they were able to come back to us with the recommendations on how to make that work. but also which profiles were going to work in that application. Because obviously we don't want to go specifying something and then it doesn't work on site. That's no good for anybody. And I mean, that comes down to the fact that they've got so many years of experience. They are the largest thermal modification company in the world. So they've got that experience.
It just adds another layer to collaborating as well.
Really does.
It makes our life easier from interior design, build, suppliers to be on the same page. Yeah. I think just to touch on too, Julia, with like Thermery, where we've got a lot of people in Australia with our BAL ratings that vary. So can we touch on like the BAL rating for some of the materials that Thermery supply?
We can. So with Thermery, we don't have a BAL rating. In Europe, they have no such thing as BAL ratings because, let's face it, their climate's a little different to ours. So what it means is that in design for exterior, you can design Thermery up to a maximum of BAL 19. And what I mean by in design is that your architect or designer will actually have the rules around that BAL rating, so either a BAL 12.5 or a BAL 19. And they will know the area of the build where they can put Thermery according to that building code. When we go above that, we can't go to Thermery any longer. We need to go to either an Aussie hardwood. You can go up to about BAL 29 with some of the Aussie hardwoods like your spotted gums and your black butts. But then we really tap out, unfortunately. And we go to a different McCormacks product, don't we, Dean?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's some great information to designers and architects listening for sure. So, there's plenty to see on Thermery. It's one of my favorites, and people can check out even Backman Builders. We've got a bunch of stuff on there on the socials. So
definitely, yeah.
I suppose next one to cover, Julia, probably one of my favorite sort of products that we've come across in recent times, and that's the Save Board. So it's I'll let you get into it. Just in a nutshell, it's basically a healthy, affordable, high performance, low carbon material, makes to a circular economy, and so many options that you guys are putting forward on that. So it's 100% recyclable material, and it's basically rubbish, isn't it, Julia? So
it is literally
I'll
rubbish.
Let you touch on
Saveboard is great. So Saveboard actually was born out of New Zealand originally. So Saveboard was started in Hamilton in New Zealand. Essentially, it is made from Tetra Paks and soft plastics. That's the majority of the products. We can put lots of different things in. So we actually get casino playing cards from Star City Casino in Sydney. We get soft plastics from the Red Cycle program. We have, when you do the container deposit schemes where you get your 10 cents, I know that's new for Victorians, Luke. In South Australia, it's been going for years, of course, but it's new for us Mexicans. But so we actually get our product from those schemes as well. And funnily enough, a lot of it comes from Western Australia and South Australia. It travels to Warragamba, where it is then shredded, and we lay it on a bed. I don't know if you guys have ever seen how they make MDF, but it's a very similar process. So you basically create this mattress of waste that is then heat pressed, and the heat melts the plastic that is in the Tetra Paks and, of course, the Red Cycle, and that becomes the glue. So we use no glue, no chemicals in the process. It is just the shreds that then melt into themselves. Couple of other things like a plastic layer at the top so that we don't have any cardboard at the end sitting proud. And we have a paper back, which basically helps it go along the conveyor belt. So that's a very functional part of the product. And then at the end of it all, you get this amazing tough board that is able to be used as wall lining. So instead of plasterboard, if you were looking at, from a design point of view, if you were looking at a wallpaper or a decorative finish on a wall, instead of going to that and spending, $300 or $400 a square meter, you could go to a Save board and spend $50 a square meter, and you're getting a product that not only looks awesome, but it's locking up a minimum of 20 kilos of waste per sheet. Like, how good is that?
That's fantastic.
Even the diversity of it that we've found from, we use it for hoarding on our projects now, which is a point of difference. It looks amazing with our signage. We even had conversation recently about just getting reject sheets to use as floor protection, buying packs of those and stuff. So it's just so many, options to use there. And in my opinion, there's some really cool finishes. Like I think it'd be the ultimate man cave material or sports room fit out, on so many levels, office buildings, and someone who's game that people add colour. There's so many options with the sheet, which looks awesome. Yeah. I might put you on the spot just quickly, Julia. Can you just to backtrack, you just mentioned before about where you're getting some of the waste from. And I believe a while ago you mentioned to me the figures of some of the cards that are recycled from the casinos. Can you recall what that was? Because it was crazy.
I think it was 2 ton of shredded cards per week, something like that. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, so it's amazing.
I mean, the best thing is, Dean, you know this, they look awesome in the save board, don't they?
It's amazing when you get up close to the rubber. Like you can actually see the little logos, and we might have to get something on the socials when this is out, and just sort of maybe get some close-ups to show people. It's a really unique
great
product.
idea.
What size are the sheets, Julia? So you say you've got 20 kilos that you can produce into a sheet. You got a standard sheet size, or are they varied sizes?
Yeah, a standard sheet size is 2.4 by 1.2, and then we're able to make a 2.7 or a 3.0. In New Zealand, we can actually do a 6 meter sheet, but there's not a cost effectiveness in there. So it's more of, if you really need 6 meters, we can do them. It is really important with the save board, guys, just to make sure that you're aware that it isn't perfect. So we are dealing with a waste product, and I'm always really conscious of letting architects and designers and the end client understand that because it is waste, it's not perfect. So sometimes we might have a board that has a little bit of an air bubble in it. We sometimes might have a little wrinkle on a board. There is some color variation with the colored boards. And so we always say, when we get an order, we say, is this the order for the whole job? Because we want to make sure we give you all one batch.
I need to jump in here for a minute, guys, and take a moment to thank our sponsors, Backman Builders, Calorie Building, and Build Imagery. Without the support of these businesses, the Build Insite podcast wouldn't be possible. So jump over and show the support for them so they can continue to support the Build Insite podcast.
We learned that early on, because you can imagine with any startup business, you go on this journey and you sort of learn as you're going along. And we had quite a high prestigious job, which had 2 different blacks side by side right behind the logo.
Well, we're always
so we won't
learning,
do that
aren't we?
again.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I guess for you guys too, I would imagine you spend a fortune when your plasterers come through on skip bin waste.
It adds up.
Yep.
So imagine if I said to you that if you use SaveBoard Paperface on a new job, so we're talking, say, 800 square meters of plasterboard for a new build on average, that's 8,000 kilos of waste that's not going into landfill because we've locked it up in the SaveBoard. But on top of that, you don't need to have a skip bin on site, because any offcuts are deliberate offcuts. There is no incidental breakage with SaveBoard. And then all of those offcuts that you do get deliberately, number one, you can use them for samples for your next job. But number 2, you send the rest of them back to us and we will recycle them into the product.
That's
just fantastic. Figures. That's where it really becomes circular. So yeah, it's I think so. How long has SaveBoard been around for, Julia? That you've in your involvement?
So we've had SaveBoard for we reached out to them in September it's 2 years ago, basically next month, we reached out to them and said, hey, do you guys have a distributor in Australia? Because we think this is an awesome product and we'd love to sell it. And so we ordered our first lot of SaveBoard from the Hamilton factory. It was very good timing because they were about to commission a new plant in Warragamba in New South Wales. And that equipment went in November that same year. So that was 2022. We got our first load of SaveBoard out of Warragamba, I think, in about March the following year, because you can imagine it takes that bit of time to get everything working and the boards to look good. But so the factory in Australia has been going, you could basically say 18 months, and the one in New Zealand for a few years. Yeah.
Well, there you have it with SaveBoard, because it's, I think hopefully a few more of our listeners will, at least at minimum, pick up some really cool looking hoarding or some floor protective sheets, knowing they're saving, helping the environment. Well, shall we move on to Magnum Board, Julia? I think that's definitely one of your favourites from our conversations. So, basically it's a high quality magnesium oxide board. I'll let you go through the ins and outs, but you've got multiple uses for Magnum Board as well, which would be great to go through.
Yeah, we do. So Magnum Board is actually an American company, Magnum Board Products, but we are the exclusive distributor for Magnum Board in Australia. We work with a company called Health-Based Building, and this is a really important partnership for us because they have the expertise around the building industry, dealing with builders direct, and they've been developing this amazing Forever Breathe specification around walls and how we create breathable homes. So Magnum Board essentially is an alternative building material for both bushfire areas, but people that want a sustainable alternative. Magnesium oxide is a naturally occurring mineral in the ground, but it is also able to be composted. So it's not chemicals. It's not there's no additives like glues or anything like that in it either. There's three main products that we have: weatherboards, flooring underlay, and Easy Line, which is your wall sheets. And we're just about to launch. We're basically in pre-launch phase at the moment with a boundary wall solution, which is the 90-90-90. So this is going to be a bit of a game changer for the industry, having a sustainable option for a boundary wall. And that looks like, when you've got townhouses or estates where you've got homes really close together. Next cab off the rank, everybody always asks me this question, is about party walls. That is next, I promise, guys.
We're looking forward to seeing that one. We've had some great discussions already. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys might be my first spec.
Test bunnies.
So, yeah, that's it. So, so with the Magnum Board itself, it is, as you say, magnesium oxide. It's got a bit of timber fibre in there, and it's got a cotton scrim. So that's what gives it its structure and makes it nice and rigid. The biggest difference between Magnum Board, and that is a proprietary product, versus other magnesium oxide boards on the market, we have no cement content, which means we don't have any silica, and the board is vapor permeable. So what I mean by that is that it will take on water, but it will also let it go again. So you can use Magnum Board Easy Line as a rigid air barrier in place of your plastic wraps. And so then you can take plastic out of that process. And obviously, if we think about some of the issues on site with plastic wraps, people, other trades leaving holes in them, it's a lot harder to do that, obviously, with a Magnum Board rigid air barrier. So lots of benefits there. The mold can't grow on Magnum Board. There's no VOCs. There's no CO2 buildup in a Forever Breathe home because you've actually got that vapor permeable, that breathable element, and there's no silica. So obviously it's much safer for you guys to use on site as well. What else can I tell you about that? I could literally go on. That was about magnet board. It is my favorite.
Yeah, you've talked some big points there, and let's like go through a couple of those. We're in an area where I know, especially in Victoria, we've just gone through eliminating any silica based pre-manufactured stones. That's now gone. Probably the general public hear about silica and probably aren't aware that there's a lot of building products that contain silica. It's not just the stone that's gone. So, there's a lot of cement sheet based products and a lot of things there. And where that flows through to healthy homes, we're just scrape the surface of those discussions. And obviously we talk building better, and that's a big part of our passions. So, yeah, I think the magnesium board, obviously, Magna board has some great health benefits to what you're putting in your home. The low VOC or no VOCs. It's got a bunch of healthy items there compared to maybe some other. We're not naming any products that you can select.
Well, and we never want to name brands because all of these different brands that have been in the market, let's face it, there wasn't an alternative at the time when they were created. And I mean, they stand on their own merits, most definitely. Magnum board, though, it is an alternative for fibre cement and plaster options. And all of the products are interior, exterior. There's no silica in any of them. And if we talk about that Forever Breathe home, that wall specification, it means that we're creating a home for, and probably especially for people like me who are allergic to everything. I want to be in a home that's low VOC, that I can confidently say that I'm not going to have mold growing. I'm extremely sensitive to those types of things. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of sick building syndrome. Yep. Well, I stayed in a hotel a few weeks ago in Queensland, and that was a sick building. It had mold in the ceiling, in the bathroom, and it actually made me physically sick. I thought that I was so unwell, and it wasn't until I was out of it a couple of days later that I realized what had made me feel so sick. So sometimes we don't even realize, and in Australia, unfortunately, we have these homes that have been built that don't have a lot of ventilation, and they're very well sealed, which is, we go, oh, it's great. We're sealing up these buildings. That's fantastic. And it's great for heating and cooling. But unfortunately, we're locking in all of the moisture, and humans, we can't turn them off. So they're going to be exhaling moisture, whether we like it or not. And so that means that we're going to have moisture coming from us, but also from appliances. So if you think about your cooking, if you think about your showers and bathrooms, we can't get away from moisture. So then we're trapping it in the home. There's nowhere for it to go. Mold will start to grow. And worst case scenario, like in New Zealand, where they have the leaky building syndrome, is you end up with that moisture in between the wall cavity. So it's in between the cladding and the plaster, and it rots your studs, like your timber in your walls. So there's lots of reasons why we don't want to be building that way. And the Forever Breathe specification really negates all of those topics and makes for a really healthy environment for us to live in.
Yeah, I have a really good example of that, actually. We had a client that it was only a really small job. We were doing a bathroom renovation, and we didn't know that actually the shower was leaking into the hallway wall. This particular client, he worked away quite a lot, like overseas international travel. He would, he said inside the house, he was always having major respiratory problems and just felt really sick. And then he would travel over to China for work. He would stay over there for 3 weeks. And we all know that the air quality over in China is actually far worse than we got in Australia. And he said he would feel amazing. He'd feel really good after the 3 weeks of living in that unhealthy air quality. And then he'd come back home, and within the space of a couple of days, he was really bad again. So it wasn't until we started pulling up carpets in the hallway and found, mold basically right outside their bedroom door. It's really dangerous. And I think it's undersold at how much it can really affect people.
It really is. Yeah. It's just attacks your whole system, and it's really down to a cellular level, I think, because I felt so ill that I actually didn't have enough energy. Like, I was only about half an hour from one of my daughter's houses, but I felt so ill I couldn't even pack my bag and get in the car and go.
Wow.
So I just fell asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was terrible. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have ever spoken to Zara Darkotta, but she talks about sick building syndrome, and she had the same thing in an apartment, I think it was. And it is not good at all. And I can imagine there would be so many thousands of homes in Australia where there is mold in the walls that you can't even see. We had the floods in Lismore. Was that last year, I think?
Probably a couple of years ago now, yeah.
Yeah, it might be too.
Yeah.
I know they're still rebuilding. But I remember seeing it on the news, and they were saying, "Oh, look at the mold in the walls or the mold on the plaster." And it's like, yeah, that's the least of your worries. Like, inside the wall is the worst bit. And that wasn't from the floods. That was from before. It's just that they only saw it when they were ripping off the plaster.
Let's cue the disclaimer. I need to let you know that myself and the Build Insite team are in no way, shape or form qualified to give you personal or specific business advice. We strongly encourage you seek out the use of professionals for products or when you are making personal or business decisions. Everything discussed during the Build Insite podcast is our own and the guest opinion and personal experience and is of a general nature only. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch you on the next one.